Hey again, guys. Wanted to get a little philosophical here. Sometimes I like to get theoretical, philosophical. I'm a Thomas Sowell fan, and I've been watching a lot of his stuff. And when you watch intellectuals, it gets your mind flowing, gets you thinking in new ways sometimes, or it triggers a little spark, a little kind of triggers your own thoughts. I always would feel that way when I would read nonfiction books. You have all these books and all these stories, but I used to think if I just get one little useful bit of information out of it, it's worth it. And it's not always that you learn directly, right? It's sometimes you learn indirectly. Sometimes when you hear something somebody says, it gets you thinking in your own way, totally maybe different, and sparks some insight. Let's put it that way. And I wanted to talk about how grading has changed the sports card hobby. Because I've been around a long time, and certainly, as many of you have, collected before there were such things as grading companies. I remember when grading first came out, I was not a fan of the concept. I then became somewhat of a fan of the concept, or at least gave it a shot. But grading has changed. Man, grading has changed a lot about the hobby. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. And I'm gonna just give some thoughts. And like I said, these are kind of philosophical, theoretical. Some of what I'm saying is a little maybe deeper. And, in the modern society, and especially in America, we see things as black and white. And we take things absolutely literally when maybe they shouldn't be taken that way. So you might find, I don't know as I go here because I'm going off the top of my head, but I might be speaking a little deeper, and you can't always take it at face value. For instance, there can be little things that are not a problem, right? When I was young, I used to say this. I used to say, lots of people grow up in single parent households. It's not a problem. Lots of people have done well for themselves. But I think in reality, if 90% of people grew up in a single parent household, it could be a problem. And so if I make that statement, people could come at me taking that statement as face value that, growing up in a single person household, I'm saying, it's a problem. No, that's not what I'm saying. Saying that there are things that aren't individually problems that collectively can be. I'm sure there are other examples I could come up with, maybe even some better examples than that. But so how has grading changed the hobby? Well, in the old days, we used to collect cards. Now I think more and more and more, every single day, we collect slabs. In the old days, the card grade was important, but not nearly as important now that it is assigned a 1 to 10 grade. And I've never been particularly fond of a 1 to 10 grade. Not that grading system anyway. I do prefer the old grading system that I think grading companies should have implemented instead, where you assign it the G, VG, X, mint, near mint, and you allow the collector to determine based on their opinion and their eyes, which is a better X or a better mint or whatever. the numeric grading scale. Basically anything less than a 10 sucks, right? And it's not a complete picture. There's a big movement now for eye appeal on the card, which is the way I've always treated it. They like look at a card and say, wow, this is fantastic, man. This appeals to me. I don't know why they assigned it this 5 or 6 or whatever. This card's beautiful to me. And so I see a movement more towards that kind of collecting. How else it's changed it is, you know, we used to talk about the rarity or scarcity of cards, the cards themselves. And now we talk about the rarity or scarcity of a 9 or a 10. You know, PSA has only graded 2 10s. And grading is so subjective. Could they have graded more? Are those 2 people that got that grade, were those 2 people or entities big customers of the grading company? Were they special people? Did they get special treatment? I know people often complain about the Rickey Henderson rookie card, 1980, how few 10s are coming out these days and how harsh they are grading it. And that leads us into something else. Is now we have the, you know, we used to have the junk wax era, which I don't like the term, as you know. But now we have the junk slab era. And a lot of people refer to that just over during the boom period when everybody was sending every card in. But I refer to the junk slab era as the original, the older slabs, because the new phenomenon now is that, well, if it was graded back then, I'm not going to pay as much to you because they grade tougher now. And you need to send in and pay more money and get an upgraded holder. The other thing I wanted to talk about, how grading has changed the hobby in a big way, is with trust. With trust. If you know anything about history, there's a big misconception that the 1929 stock market crash caused the Great Depression. It did not. In fact, that stock market rebounded very quickly after that one-day collapse, just like it did with many other collapses. But the federal government made changes. They made new laws, increased taxes in a big way over the next few years. And the Great Depression didn't happen until a few years later. And it was kind of, and I'll get to my point here, it's kind of an overreaction to things, an over control, over regulation. And so I kind of compare card grading to this, because card grading has created zero trust in the hobby. And you'll say, no, John, it's the scammers, it's the influencers, it's this, it's that. I think it's the card grading that has created this, because it has created distrust, total and complete distrust, to the point where there are even people who have businesses, you know, stickering after the fact graded cards. We have PSA grading trimmed cards, and they've been doing it, and getting duped, and people trying to get over on these grading companies. And so now we're getting to the point where we can't even trust the grade. We can't even trust the slab they're in. We can't even trust if it's a graded card. And isn't that a paradox? Isn't that a paradox? It's kind of like how the Great Depression came to be. The more you tried to prevent it, the more it happened. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in the hobby now. The more, you know, everything's got to be authenticated. Everything's got to be opened with latex gloves. It's got to be double authenticated, the more scammers are out there, the more trimmed cards are out there. I don't think this was nearly as big of a deal, these trimmed cards and fake cards in the earlier booms. They certainly were there. There's no doubt about it. But it seems to be getting worse now that we have parameters in place where this should not be the case. We have, authentication for autographs, and oftentimes those are authenticated and they're not. Experts on the autographs don't agree that they are the right autograph. So grading has changed us in a way where we are paranoid. We don't trust any card. We look at cards that aren't in a slab as fake, evil, obviously altered, all kind of things. I mean, we have demonized them. I've always been fascinated with the phenomenon that I can have just a normal old card, a really sharp card, that's has nice sharp corners, measures correctly, is a beautiful example of the card. And I couldn't sell it as much as I could a PSA 3 because it's in a slab. And that's why I say we're not buying cards anymore. We're buying slabs. And I think grading could be a phenomenal thing. But I don't think it's panning out that way. And how much extra money do you spend on cards due to grading? When you buy your cards and send them in, how much do you pay to have them graded? How much do you pay to crack them and send them in and get them graded again? How much do you pay every time something's wrong with a holder, it has a crack, it's dingy, whatever, to send it in and get another holder? How much do you pay in insurance? How much do you pay in shipping costs? Just to basically maintain the cards you already have. So grading has certainly caused most collectors, or many collectors, a lot of extra money. It has become a big business. And with these cards, just like the one we've heard about recently that sold for millions, that was trimmed and was graded by PSA, what kind of incentive does that give them? And now we're seeing what we saw in the 80s, basically, and beyond, where there's no little guys anymore. The conglomerates are taking over everything. Just like when Home Depot and Lowe's opened up, you don't see any little private hardware stores anymore. When Walmart came around and Walgreens, CVS, you don't see any of the corner drugstores that I used to shop at as a kid, where the local guy owned it. Local pharmacists, those don't exist anymore. And we're getting to the point now where Fanatics and PSA, these big guys are just going to own everything and control everything. And what is next? I think if you watched the movie Night Shift years ago with Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton was an idea man, and he used to come up with these crazy ideas, and he was like, hey, I got an idea. How about we put the mayonnaise right in with the tuna fish and can it up? That way you don't have to open the tuna fish and then put the mayonnaise in to make your tuna salad. Why don't we just put the graded cards right in the packs? If we're gonna spend all this money for brand new cards, and then we gotta get semi-rigids to put them in. And in the old days, it was taboo to put them in soft sleeves, but all of a sudden now everybody's putting them in soft sleeves and then the semi-rigid. So then we got to put it in there, send them all off to get graded. pay more money for that and the shipping and the insurance. So why don't we just put graded cards right in packs? Because when people started doing this, these new cards, unless you damage them opening them up, they are in perfect condition. And I say it all the time, you and I cannot tell the difference between a 9 and a 10, and neither can the card graders at PSA. Otherwise, they wouldn't, when you crack them and send them in, they wouldn't upgrade the grade so often. If they could tell the difference, they can't tell the difference. We can't tell the difference. They're brand new cards, right freshly out of packs. I mean, people will take an encased Topps E-card or any encased Topps card and send it in for grading, which I've always also found silly. I mean, you're getting a card that is pristine from the manufacturer. See, in the old days, it made sense to get cards graded. Made way more sense because they were handled and possibly trimmed and possibly tampered with, and they were 100 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old, and they were circulated, played with, and so it makes way more sense to assign those kinds of cards grade. So for me personally, never understood the modern grading thing. To me, it's a complete money grab scam, to me. And what has happened is now you can't sell your cards unless they're graded. So if you're someone like me who does like to keep my cards as they are and not send them in, at some point, if I ever want to sell, I will be forced to. I will be forced to, because the grading companies have achieved their objective, that they are going to get money from every collector one way or another. It's a whole new world out there. Anyway, that's what I had on my mind. Thanks for watching.